still good.
Okay. All right, everybody. So here's the situation. On a buyer interview, you want to set up rapport initially with the client. So Al and I are going to have a little impromptu conversation. I'm going to ask him about the referral source that introduced us, what that person said about me and my service, and then I'll ask him about his purchasing situation, his lease situation, things along those lines. Again, to build that initial rapport before we get into the actual presentation. You don't want to get right into a presentation. You want to actually, again, in any situation, build rapport, whether in an open house or on a listing appointment or just meeting somebody in general. So we are ready to get started. Okay, Al?
All right.
Okay. So, hey Al, thank you very much for coming in today.
Thanks for
Appreciate
having
you taking the time. You know what's really great about you coming in today
What is that?
is it shows that you're serious about buying a house. You know, so many people want to just meet you at a house just to see the house without knowing the process. So it's great that you're taking the time to invest, to learn about the process, so that you're an educated agent. And there's so many people out there today in the market that are just uneducated. So I really appreciate you doing that. And so tell me, how did you meet Billy?
So he was introduced to me by a friend, and then we started working out together. I've known him for a couple of years now, and when I told him I was looking for a home, he referred me to you.
Okay, great. What did he say about the service that we provide or anything about me?
He said you were a great person. You were there for him every step of the way. He never felt left in the dark along the process, and me being a first-time home buyer, I figured I would need something like that as well. So
Okay,
came to
great.
you.
Awesome. So one of the most important things, Al, is never hesitate to ask questions, okay? It's a complicated transaction. It's complex. We're going to try and make it easy for you, as easy as we can. Sometimes we can't control other people and how other people treat other people or how other people act professionally and things along those lines. But we're going to keep you informed, and we want you to keep us informed. And the best way to do that is to have open lines of communication and ask questions at any time. Okay?
Okay.
So, is it okay if I take notes?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, awesome. Just want to make sure, because I don't want to forget anything that you say. Okay? So, Al, before we get started, is there anything in particular that you have questions about?
Yeah, so I haven't really done anything. I still need to get a loan and things like that. I didn't know where to
Okay.
start, so I figured it should be with you first.
Okay, awesome. Now, have you looked at any houses yet online or gone to any open houses or anything?
Yeah, I've looked online a little bit. I've gone to a couple open houses. I don't really know how much I qualify for yet. But,
Okay. Great. Okay, well we'll get into all that stuff because it's really important to know. So, do you know anything about the market right now, or did any of the
No.
people at the open houses tell you anything about the market?
no, not really. I just know I need a house.
Okay, great. Well, let's start off because the first thing that you said was that you needed a loan. And getting a loan is the most important part in the process. Because once we know how much you qualify for, then we know how much house you can afford, what your payments are going to be, make sure you're comfortable with those payments. And then in addition to that, we'll know what areas fit that price point that you're qualified for. We don't want to show you $1 million houses if you only qualify for $350 because you're going to think and compare everything to that $1 million house. Well, it's not the same. So we want to show you things that fit your budget, you're comfortable with the payments, and in the areas that you want to be in. Okay? So we have different loans that are available to you, and then different lenders that specialize in those loan products so that, like me, you get a specialist that can help you in that area, and they're going to make it seamless and make it a smooth transaction for you. Okay? But first, let's talk about you a little bit. Have you had any military experience?
No, I have not.
Okay. So the reason I ask is there's a loan. It's a VA loan. It's for veterans. And so I don't want to waste your time telling you about loans that you don't qualify for. We have FHA loans. and FHA loans are for people that can be credit challenged. How do you feel your credit is?
It's probably not the best. I would guess around the 600 to 650 mark.
600, 650 mark. Okay, so again, another really good reason to meet with a lender, because they can run your credit for you and help you understand the credit and see if you need to improve your credit before you can actually purchase a house. Okay, so it seems like the FHA loan may be the way for you to go if we decide to move forward without getting your credit fixed. Where did you get the information on your 600 to 650 range?
I just looked on the internet and Credit Karma, and that's just what they gave me. So
Okay, that's a very good place to start and a very good conversation for us to have. So there's different types of credit. Okay, so we have Credit Karma, and then we have credit card loans, credit card credit, and then we have car loan credit, and then we have home loan credit. Okay, and each one has different thresholds for how they rate your credit. Okay, Credit Karma is the lowest threshold out there. They just and I don't know how they come up with your credit score, but they come up with a credit score that's typically higher than what each of the upcoming loans or credit scores we're going to talk about coming up. Okay, so credit card credit is the next lowest threshold. And credit cards, you've been into Home Depot and they say, hey, you can save 10% if you get a credit card.
yeah,
Right. So you just put in your social security number, boom, you're approved, right?
mm-hmm.
Yep. So they don't really do a lot of research. They basically just go based upon your social security card. They give you an interest rate based upon what your credit score is that they have, which again is going to be similar to a Credit Karma type of credit score. Then you get a car loan credit. Okay, in car loan credit, they're going to ask your income, and then they're going to ask some of your debts, and then they're going to run your credit. So that one has a little bit higher threshold. Okay, and then home loans, they actually go to 3 different credit reporting agencies, and they come up with what is known with a FICO score, and that's a credit score that takes everything into consideration: all your debt, all your income, all your credit inquiries, also payment history, amount of available credit. So it's a more comprehensive credit score based on a number of factors, not just your social security number. Okay, so based upon that information, we really do need to get you in touch with the lender, because this Credit Karma score can sometimes be 70 to 80% higher than what your FICO score is.
Oh wow.
Yes, so it's enlightening to a lot of people, not just you, Al.
Okay.
So what we'll do is once we're finished with our buyer interview that we're going through here to see if we can work together, is we'll get you in touch with some of the lenders that we work with. Okay, so on the next loan, so the conventional, there's FHA and conventional loans. Okay, and conventional loans conform to Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae guidelines. They're basically loans in a box, right? You have, the lender has to put together your credit score, your income history, your debts, your W-2s, your pay stubs, verify your bank accounts, and all these things, right? So it's a whole process that you'll go through with the lender to assemble this information, and then they get your loan approved, and then they sell that on the secondary market. Okay, so they have these guidelines that you conform within, and on conventional loans, they have different products. They have adjustable rate mortgages, which are called ARMs. They have 30-year fixed, they have 15-year fixed, they have a number of different things to help you qualify depending on how long you're going to stay in the house. Okay, but let me back up to the FHA loan. With FHA loans, you can also get a gift, which differentiates you from conventional loans. And then also the down payments are only 3.5% on an FHA loan. For conventional, you can get some 3% down loans. You can get 5%, 10%, and then 20% or more down, depending on how much cash you have. So that might be a good place to start next, Al. We'll tell you a little bit about how the lenders are going to go about qualifying you, okay? So to see what your loan amount's going to be. So how much do you currently make, Al?
I make around $60,000 a year.
$60,000 a year. Okay, that's excellent. And then, how long have you been on that job?
I've been there for about 4 years.
4 years, great, because they need a 2-year history. So that's perfect that you've been there for 4 years. Do you have, of this $60,000, is any of it bonuses, or is it all straight salary?
It's all salary.
Okay, that's good too, because they need a history of bonuses and things if that's what happens there. Now, as far as your loans go and your credit goes, or debts, I'm sorry, how much credit card debt do you have?
I would say I have a few thousand in credit card debt.
Okay, so 2,000.
Yeah.
And what do you think the minimum payments on those are? $50?
Yeah, about 50.
Yeah. Okay. And then do you have a car loan?
Yes, I do.
You don't have a Maserati or a Ferrari?
No, I
do
do
you?
not.
Okay. Oh.
No.
What's your car loan?
It's about $400 a month.
$400 a month. Okay. Now, on top of that, Al, how much time do you have left on that car loan?
I have another 2 years left.
2 years. Okay. And the reason I ask is, if it's less than a year, then they won't credit that debt against you, because your loan's going to be paid off in all likelihood before or close to when you're buying a house. So do you have any student loans or anything along those lines?
Yes.
Okay, and how much are your student loans?
I have another 10,000 left.
10,000, and what's the payment on that?
That's also around $350 a month.
$350 a month. Okay, so do you have any boats or motorcycles or anything crazy like that?
Nothing like that.
No. Okay, cool. So what they do, they don't care about your cell phone. They don't care about your health insurance. They don't care about child care, but they do care about alimony. You've been divorced? Do you have any alimony payments? No? All right, cool. All right, so what they do next, Al, is they take your $60,000, which is your gross, right, and divide it by 12. So that gives us $5,000 a month in your gross income, okay? And then they have ratios that they use. And these ratios they call front-end ratios and back-end ratios, okay? A front-end ratio is your income multiplied by the ratio, which is 29% for FHA and 28% for conventional. So the most your payment can be is whatever that number comes out to be in each of those scenarios, okay? Then the next thing that they do is they take the back ratio. And the back ratio for FHA is 41%. Sometimes they can stretch that up to 45 if you're comfortable with the payment at that range. And then for conventional, it's 36. Okay, and sometimes they can go up to 38 or 39, depending on your situation. And then they subtract out your debts. And then whichever number is lower, they go with that number for your maximum house payment. Okay? So, let's just do our math real quick. And we'll see what we come up with for you. Do you have any questions at this point?
No.
Okay. So, for your front end ratio on the FHA, we're going to come out to a payment of $1,450. Okay? And that's going to be PI, TI, and then your homeowners association. Okay? PI, TI, HOA. Now, we're going to go back and we're going to do your 5,000 times 0.41, and that equals $2,050. And now we're going to subtract out your debts, okay? And your debts, we said, were $800 a month. So minus 800 equals $1,250. Okay, so the house payment that you can have is $1,250. Do you feel comfortable with a $1,250 a month payment?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, cool. So the next thing that the bank's going to do is they're going to take out the taxes, the insurance, and the HOA. Now, are you familiar with that term PITI?
No, what does PITI mean?
So that's principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. And then the HOA is your homeowners association. So in this particular scenario, you're probably going to be looking at being in like in a townhouse or something along those lines. We really haven't gotten into your home search yet, but unless you live in a further out area, you might be able to get a house that's not in an HOA. But I like to have that in there just for qualification purposes. Okay. So typical HOA is about 75. Your insurance in this price point is probably going to be about 40, and then your taxes are going to be about 200. So we're going to get that number down. So we're going to go down. So that leaves you principal and interest of $935 a month. Okay. So then we'll plug that $935 into the loan program and see what you come up with. Okay. Any questions?
No, we're good so far.
Okay. So just for fun, because I don't have my app open here, we're going to say that this $935 equates to a $200,000 mortgage. Okay, so that's going to be your loan amount. So you have a $200,000 loan at this point, and then how much money do you have saved up for your down payment and closing costs?
I have about $8,000 saved.
$8,000. Okay, so that's outstanding. And so 200,000. We're looking again. We believe at FHA, so that's going to be about 7,000 on top of that. So you'd be looking at a sales price. You know, we'd probably be looking at places around $210,000, and then we'd ask the sellers to help pay your closing costs, so that really all you would need to get in with would be the cash that you have in reserves. Okay. On top of this $8,000, Al, do you have a 401k at your office?
Yes, I do.
And do you know how much is in that?
Roughly another 12,000.
12,000. Okay. So when you speak with your lender, let him know or her know about that, because you may be able to borrow against that 401k to come up with the closing costs if the seller's not going to be willing to contribute towards your closing costs. And as I mentioned with the FHA loan, you have the ability to get a gift in a lot of examples, or a lot of instances. Do you have a wealthy family member that can give you money?
I could probably reach out to somebody, but not off the top of my head, I can't think of one.
Okay. So again, start to think about that as you start to talk to family members and friends about you buying a house. The family members say, "Oh, Al, I'll help you out." So remember, it has to be a family member or a close family friend. It can't be your buddy Billy, okay? But it could be, your mom's boyfriend or something like that, okay? So anyway, that's kind of where we're looking now. Do you have any questions about the loan or the loan process?
No, I'm good so far.
Okay. All right. So I have this home buyer guide for you, and in this home buyer guide, it goes over all the information that we're talking about today, and probably even more. So, but the important thing in here for you is it has the information that you need for your loan. Okay. And this is the stuff that you're going to need to assemble for the lender to get your loan. When you speak with the lender, they're going to sometimes ask for the same thing 2 and 3 times. So don't get frustrated, just know that that's the process. Sometimes things need to be updated, okay, along the way. But also some information on what the loans have to say, okay? The other thing I like to let you know about is a different type of lenders. Because a lender is, again, in your loan are critical in you getting a house, okay? So lenders we have are brokers, okay? And brokers are people who sell your loan to any number of people. So SunTrust Bank, BB&T, Bank of America, any big bank along those lines, Wells Fargo, that has loan products, okay? So they're typically limited to big banks as far as who their sources for selling their loans are. But what they do is they'll take your loan application and then they'll gather this information and then they'll submit it out to these different banks. So they give up control over the underwriting process, the approval process, and the closing process in the loan. So they're basically just a middleman, okay? And because they don't have control over the loan, a lot of listing agents are weary of working with people who are brokers just because they don't know what's going to happen. Also, because they don't know how these banks want their loans assembled and put together and submitted, they may come back and ask for more information over and over and over again. Okay, which can become extremely frustrating. When I said the regular lenders are going to be frustrating, these can sometimes be very frustrating. Then there's banks and credit unions. Okay, and so banks and credit unions like Navy Federal, PenFed, USAA, or if you went directly to a big bank, they'll do the application process, and then it'll probably go like to Richmond to get under it, and then it'll go to Charlotte to get approved, and then it'll go out to Nebraska to get closed. So there's a lot of hands in the process, and that slows down the process. So and then also because you have different people looking at everything, something may come up last minute that one of the other people didn't catch, which is a problem. And then also with the banks and credit unions, they have appraisal management companies that they work with. And appraisal management companies are companies that hire appraisers that could be from Baltimore, Maryland to come down here to Gainesville to do an appraisal. And they're not familiar with the market, which can sometimes impact your loan amount and your ability to get the loan that you want to have. Okay? And then we have direct lenders. And direct lenders have warehouse lines of credit, and they already know that if they assemble the loans the way that Bank of America, Wells Fargo, SunTrust, or whomever they sell that loan to, if they process it, originate it, process it, underwrite it, and close it, they'll buy it. Okay? So these people have a lot more control. They are local people that we have long-standing relationships with, and then they also have local appraisers. So all in all, working with a direct lender is going to be one of your better options. Okay, so that's what we want to introduce you to, is a couple of different direct lenders that we work with. Now, the other thing that's important is we don't have any affiliated business arrangements with these lenders, so I'm not making money off of referring these people to you. And so they're going to give you the best service that they can, because they want to continue to earn my business, because it's not guaranteed that they're going to get it from me every time. Okay? Any questions on which type of lender you need to contact?
No, that should be fine. I think I'm going to go with the direct lender just because how easy it sounds.
Yeah. Okay, great. Awesome. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is the market. Right now, the housing market is such that we have very low inventory. We especially have low inventory in the lower price points. There are more buyers than there are houses for sale, so it's extremely competitive. But that being said, we're going to do our best to get you into a house. There may be multiple contracts, and if so, then we'll get into how to win multiple contracts. But right off the top, just want to let you know that, we're going to do more than just look at MLS for you. We're going to go, we have real estate information exchanges where we're going to talk to other agents about the type of housing that you want. And then we're going to call local real estate agents in the area that list properties in the area where you want to live and see if they have anything that's going to be coming soon, so we can get on that before it hits the market. And then we're going to ask our lenders and title partners if they know anybody that may have something that I don't have access to. Plus we'll go into Zillow coming soon, things along those lines. We'll go into Facebook pages that have coming soon listings and things like that. So we're going to network to get you into a house, whether you see it on MLS or not. Okay? So so what type of house are you looking to buy?
I wanted a single family house, but after what you're telling me about my loan, I'm thinking townhouse would be more reasonable.
Okay, so townhouse. We can look for single family houses, depends on where you want to be. So what location are you thinking?
I want to stay more in the area, in like the Chantilly, Centerville area.
Okay. Alright. That could be tough to find you either a townhouse or a single family house in that price point. Would you consider any other areas?
Yeah, if it's not too far. I don't want to be out too far in the country or anything like that.
Okay, what's too far in the country to you?
I'm saying maybe like Winchester area.
Okay, no further than Winchester. Okay. Alright, so we've got that. And then how many bedrooms and how many bathrooms and kind of what are your needs? Let's start with your needs and then your wants.
Okay.
So what do you need?
I would definitely need 3 bedrooms. I have 2 kids and a wife. So that and at least 2 full baths.
Okay. Alright. Well, Billy didn't tell me that you had a wife. Does your wife work?
Yeah. She just works part-time though, so she only brings in maybe like 30,000.
30,000? Okay. And how long has she had that part-time job?
Not too long, maybe a year.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we can see if there's some supplemental income that we could use or some trailing spouse income.
Okay.
That's something else we can talk to the lender about. And I apologize for not asking if you were married prior to this, Al, or I would have had her at the meeting as well, right? So we can, because I like her to be informed as well. Okay. So 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. What else?
A garage would be nice.
Okay.
Not necessary, but it'd be nice.
Okay, so that would be one of your wants and not a need. And then, how about like an age of the property? Is there any, does that matter to you, or do you want updates or upgrades, or just like a wish list kind of thing?
That's not too important for me.
Okay.
As long as it's structurally okay, then I'm okay with that.
Great. So that's one of the things when we go through the house and we look at the houses, I'm going to point out anything that I see that I would consider to be a problem, and notify you of that. And then we'll have a home inspection once we get a property under contract, and that home inspector will also go through the property and let you know of anything that they see that they feel could be a problem. Okay? So we'll protect you as best we can in that sometimes there's some hidden defects that we can't see and obviously we can't find out about, but anything that's visual that we can see, we're going to point out to you and let you know. Okay? Alright, so what will happen is we'll go ahead and we're going to set you up with a home search online. And we're going to go basically from Chantilly, Centerville out to like no further than Winchester and not hold anything back as far as properties that meet your 3-bedroom, 2-bath. So again, some single family houses, some townhouses, and some condos may even come up. Okay? So we'll see how that goes. One other question, we talked about getting a gift from a family member. Do you think it's possible to get a cosigner if you find the right property and it's maybe a little bit more expensive, or if we have to go for a condo that has a higher condo fee, like
Yeah.
a parent.
Yeah, I
something
could
like
definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so we can look. We can also consider that as we get into the process. Okay, so once you meet with the lender and we have your loan amount and sales price, and then we've got these properties in the search, then we'll set up a time. We'll go out and we'll look at properties. Okay, and I'd really encourage your wife and kids to come so that they can see, the houses too and get excited about the house that you guys are picking out. And that process can take one day or it could take 1 year. So it's really depends, right? As you look online, the one thing to remember is you've already discounted hundreds of houses that you don't like. So it could be, and it's happened in the past, where you've gone out and people love the first house they see. If that happens to you, don't worry. You don't need to go and see 25 other houses to prove that that one's your favorite. If it meets all your criteria and it's a house you like, don't be worried that you're buying the first house that you see. Okay? We'll still go out and see the houses that we're planning on seeing that day, but it could be a one and done type situation with you buying a house. Okay? Or it could be, you know what I get in Chantilly and Centerville is not as good as what I can get in Haymarket, and may not be as good as what I can get in Front Royal. And so we may go out several times until we find you a house, which too is okay because that's my job, that's what I do. Don't feel bad that it took you 50 houses because that's how I do my job, right? So once we find the property, then we'll put together the offer, okay? And in the offer, it'll have, the sales price, the down payment, your loan amount, things along those lines, which is all called specified financing. And that's an important term when we get into the contract. And again, I'll go over each paragraph of the contract when we do find the property, so you feel comfortable and can ask questions about what's in it and what your obligations are. But that's where we'll also ask for seller assistance if we can get that from them, and then we'll have the settlement date. We'll have any contingencies like the finance, home inspection, and radon if we need to have radon, and then if it's property owners association, we'll make sure that we get those documents, and then we'll also have an appraisal contingency in there. Speaking of the settlement date, Al, where are you currently living?
I'm living in an apartment.
Okay, and when does your lease end?
It ends in 3 months.
3 months. Okay, and do you have the ability to go month to month after that if we haven't found anything?
Yes.
Okay, so that's good. So that way you don't feel pressured into buying something that you find right away or that you don't find. So that's a great situation for you to be in. So once we determine all these things, we will protect your interests, and we'll have a home inspection. If there's items that you ask for and the seller doesn't fix, you can get out of the contract. If in the home inspection there's something that I didn't see and you didn't see when we were looking at the house, like something up in the attic, then you can just void the contract. Okay, so the home inspection allows you to get out of the contract easily if we don't negotiate the terms that are acceptable to you, or we find something that's awful. Okay, and then if we have radon, if the radon level comes above 4.0 picocuries per liter unit of air, you can void the contract, or you can ask the seller to fix it, and if the seller doesn't fix it, you can void the contract, so you can get out that way. And then we'll have an appraisal contingency, so if the house doesn't appraise for what we contract with the seller for, and the seller doesn't lower the sales price, you can get out of the contract. And then we'll have the HOA docs delivered to me. I'll review the Architectural Review Board findings to see if there's any approvals that are missing or any things that the seller needs to do, like paint, rotten, or trim, something along those lines. Make sure their deck and their fences are approved and stuff. And then I'll also look at the budget to make sure that everything's squared away at the budget, especially reserves. Make sure there's no special assessments. And then I'll read the meeting notes of the last 5 or 6 meetings to see if there's any issues or any lawsuits that they're dealing with, to see if it's going to be something that could cost you money down the road. Then I'll let you know of those things, and then then I'll pass them on to you. At that point, you'll have 3 days to review them. If for any reason you don't like them, like you can't paint your front door pink because that's your daughter's favorite color, you can get out of the contract. Okay, so it's kind of like a get out of jail free card. Also, when the lender sends the appraiser out to the property, they're going to do an inspection of the property, especially with FHA. They'll run water, they'll flush toilets, they'll do like a mini inspection. They'll turn on all the appliances, make sure they operate. And if they find something that they say needs to be fixed, the seller can fix it and you're still under contract. If the seller doesn't fix it, you can fix it and you're still under contract. Or if the seller won't fix it and you don't want to fix it, then you can get out of the contract. Okay? So you do have some options, and we're going to discuss these as we're in the contract mode to make sure that you're comfortable with everything before you make your final decision to move forward. Okay? Because once we remove these contingencies, and then you don't close, then the deposit that we make could go at risk. So you want to make sure that you're totally comfortable with the house. Okay? So once we get the contract ratified, that's when we do the home inspection. The home inspection takes about 2 to 3 hours, and we do that within 7 to 10 days of ratification. I would expect you and your wife to be there so that you can learn where the water shutoff valves are, gas shutoff valves in case you have any issues, and then also see what's good about the house and what's wrong with the house to make sure that you're comfortable with the house going forward. Then once we've finished that negotiation, then we have the appraiser go out and we do the appraisal as I mentioned, and then a termite or wood destroying insect inspector goes out to make sure there's no issues with the property as far as those go. There's no active infestation. And then we'll remove that, and then we'll have a walkthrough and go to closing, and then you become a homeowner.
Sounds good.
Any questions about that process? No? Okay, so one thing we did not discuss yet, Al, is how I get compensated. And so basically how I get compensated is the seller, builder, or for sale by owner. So if you see anything like that, you're going to let me know about these for sale by owners and builders. They agree to pay an agent, whether they represent the seller, the builder, or again, the for sale by owner. And that's a certain percentage of the sales price. In most cases, we're going to be dealing with sellers that are hiring a listing company, and they agree to pay that listing company a fee, and then that listing company is authorized to pay buyer agents, sub-agents, or non-agents. Okay? And the way that what this means to you is that the seller, if you so choose to hire me, would be paying my commission. And I prefer to work as a buyer's agent versus a seller's agent because we have an established relationship. And, Billy introduced us, and that's how I work for Billy. And it, again, doesn't cost you any money out of your pocket to have me represent you. Okay? And when I represent you, I'm going to be your advocate. I'm going to disclose everything I know about the property, about the seller, about the listing company, about the area that I'm aware of. I'm accountable to you. I'm going to take care of your finances, your earnest money, make sure it's put in an escrow account, and that it gets credited towards your down payment and closing costs. And then I'm going to negotiate on your behalf. I'm going to look out for your best interest all the way through the transaction. Okay? So, again, it's up to you. You can hire me to be your buyer agent, or we can still work together. It's just knowing that when we go out, I'm representing the seller, and I'll be doing all the same things I just said that I do for you, but for the seller that I don't know. So, which way would you like me to work with you? What capacity?
I think I would want you to be my buying agent.
Okay, great. Well, I'd love to work with you. I think we can work with you to help you find this house. So, here is all the buyer agent guide, and then in here I have our exclusive right to represent buyer package. And the buyer agency agreement, and then we'd go into the buyer agency agreement on another video. But that's how you transition from going through the buyer guide, the buying process, to getting someone to execute a buyer agency agreement. Any questions, Al?
No, I think we're all set.
Did we cover a lot?
Yeah,
Is that what you wanted?
definitely.
All right, pal. So you can go back and watch this anytime.
All right.
If you have any questions, give me a call 703-652-5777 or email me at scottmcdonald@remax.net. Now go sell something.